next, we're going to move into leadership and the team. All right, now we're going to talk about, all right, you're a leader and now you have a team. What are we going to do to motivate and develop this team? And we have 4 sections we want to talk about with that. And the first one is how great leaders obtain followers. Okay? Now, let me read a quote from you. Robert Kelly, in his landmark article in Harvard Business Review, said this: in an organization of effective followers, a leader tends to be more an overseer of change and progress than a hero. As organizational structures flatten, the quality of those who follow will become more and more important. You see, because he sees 4 essential qualities of effective leaders. All right, so let me read that again to you. In an organization of effective followers, a leader tends to be more an overseer of change and progress than a hero. They're facilitating progress. As organization structures flatten, which means they're getting less higher and more this, right? Less of this, more of this. We're seeing that all over, right? The quality of those who follow become more and more important. Matter of fact, I remember years ago when I was in Tennessee, I had a private practice group I was with, and next door to us was a career counseling center that does career counseling. And they had asked us, would we actually do the clinical work for anybody that comes in that needs it, who are depressed, those kind of things. But when we agreed to do that, they said we had to read this book. And I cannot remember the book, but I never forgot what this guy was teaching. He was a British business expert on what was going to take place as we moved into the 21st century. And because this group said, this is what's going to happen. And this guy was predicting, so this is like the 1990s, he says, as we get further into the 21st century, businesses are going to start downsizing considerably. Because they're not going to pay insurance, they're not going to pay overhead, they're not going to do that. So he used the idea of a 4-leaf clover. That was his model. That basically, they're going to operate like a 4-leaf clover. They're going to have three areas. And they're going to get rid of all the extra. And they said the way people will survive, you get further into the 21st century, this guy was saying, people will be more and more depending on 2 or 3 part-time jobs to survive. There'll be fewer full-time positions, and if you are in a full-time position, you're in one of those core positions in the 4-leaf clover. That means you're in one of those positions, but everything else will be farmed out. So people will survive by 2 or 3 part-time jobs. That's how he said it will happen as we get further into it. I've never forgot that. And I'm starting to see that more and more. So things are flattening, right? Less of this, because people are getting rid of things for all these different reasons. All right? So let's talk about these qualities real quick. First one is followers. They manage themselves well. The key to being effective as a follower is paradoxically the ability to think of oneself, to think for oneself. Follower also see themselves as equals to the leader they follow. In other words, just because I might be a subordinate doesn't mean you're better than me, right? It's Molly, isn't it? Mallory. It doesn't mean you're better than me, Mallory. You might be my boss, but that's just a positional. That's positional, right? But we're still humans. And as humans, we're still what? Equal. And I always, when I talk to CEOs, I say, don't ever forget, people don't check their humanity at the door. We're still human in the end. And you might have positional authority over me, but I'm still a person, and we're to treat people with dignity and respect always. All right? And healthy followers, they manage themselves well. All right? Next, they're committed to a higher purpose. They work towards the purpose of the organization and to certain principles and values outside of themselves. If they see a misalignment with personal values, they may withdraw their support either by changing jobs or by changing leaders. I like to say this, people actually don't leave their jobs, they leave their supervisor. That's why they leave. And if you got fired, you fired yourself. You did what it took to get fired, you see. But the reality is, people don't leave their job, they leave their supervisors. But there are people out there who say, you know what, I don't need this for myself. I believe in myself. I deserve better than to be treated this way. And these people will leave because they have higher values they live by. It might be faith, it might be religion, it might be spirituality. Who knows what it is? But there's something in that. These great followers, they live beyond. All right? And those become their higher values for their life. Okay? Next. They build their strengths. They have high standards of performance and are continually learning and updating their skills and abilities. They seek out extra work and responsibilities gladly in order to stretch themselves. Boy, imagine having some of those people working for you, as opposed to one that just comes in, does their work, and goes. I was telling my son yesterday, I said, look, the reason you have made a name for yourself on campus in student government and our friends now with the president, you and the past president, and all the VPs, is because you didn't sit around. You started knocking on doors. You made yourself known. He said, well, Dad, I've learned networking is one thing, but activating those networks is different. I said, very much so. And so he's learned, but he's built on his strengths. He's gotten feedback from them. Some of them have corrected him on some things he's done. He learned from those corrections, you see. And so this is that kind of person. He's constantly learning and growing and developing himself. All right? And lastly, and praise the followers, they take risks. They are credible, honest, and have the courage to speak up. I appreciate someone who's on my team who say, Rick, I need to share something with you. I appreciate what you're saying, but you need to consider this. Or when you do that, you understand that you're hurting this person over here. Never thought about it. You see, I appreciate those people because that means they care enough about me as well, don't they? And by caring about me and speaking up, they also care about the whole. And I like that. When we all value the whole. They give credit where due, but also admit mistakes. They're insightful and candid, and they are willing to take risks. They can keep leaders and colleagues honest and informed. Man, I like those kind of people on my team. In information age organizations, hundreds of decentralized units process and rapidly act on varied input within the design and purpose of the organization. This requires an entirely different relationship between leaders and followers, which speaks somewhat against 24/7 being authoritarian, doesn't it? Going back to that leadership style. Because if you're going to have an authoritarian leadership, you can't develop these kinds of followers. These kind of people won't stick around. Because if they do offer you insight, if they do offer you something because they believe there's something better here for the whole, you're going to squash them anyways because you're not open to feedback. You know, that bossy type of person. All right? Now, type of power is leaders. So there are different types of power leaders. The first one is called positional power. This is the power that a leader has when followers believe that the leader has a right to instruct them and they have an obligation to follow instructions. Sometimes legitimacy power is created by the leader's job title. You're a captain, you're a doctor, right? Those kind of things. Combined with the followers' belief that the job title gives the leader the right to give them orders. Now, that's positional power. CEO, VP, department head, right? That's positional power. In the military, generals or admirals, colonels, lieutenant colonels, majors, right? And then it goes on down to this guys in the enlisted ranks, chiefs, petty officers, and sergeants, whatever, all the way down to your basic private or seaman recruit. All right, that's all positional authority. All right, and you can lead by positional authority. But remember I said earlier, you might have a position above me as a positional power, but that doesn't mean you have respect. I'll give you an example of that. When I was on active duty, I had my leading petty officer. He was a first-class petty officer. I, at the time, was a new third-class petty officer. So he was 2 steps above me, been in a lot longer than I have been. And we also had a senior chief who's brand new in our office, so he was above him. And I never forgot, because the way Petty Officer Toombs always treated me was, you're stupid, you're dumb, you don't know anything, so keep your mouth shut. Had no respect for the man, and we butt heads. Until my captain corrected me and said, I'm not asking you to like Petty Officer Toombs, you will respect his position. He is your LPO. All right, sir. That's where it really hit me. Positional power, I may not like you, but I will respect the position. Well, fast forward a year, now senior chief's in. And senior chief and the 2 first-class petty officers are having a conversation about something, and I'm just leaning in the doorway listening. And senior chief walks over to me and says, Petty Officer Marks, what do you think? I said, it really doesn't matter what I think, senior chief. He said, excuse me? He smoked like this. Excuse me? I said, it doesn't matter what I think. Where did you learn that? And I said, I'm a third-class petty officer. He goes, that may be true, but where did you learn your thoughts have no importance? Of course, Petty Officer Toombs sitting right there. And I said, well, that's just the way I learned it in the Navy. And he takes his finger and he starts jabbing it on my rank. What is that? And I said, third class petty officer rank. Well, if this man's Navy believes, he said, if this government's Navy believes you should have the rank of a third class petty officer, you have an opinion and I want to hear it. Yes, Senior Chief. And I told him what I thought. He went like this. He went back, sat at his desk. He goes, we're going to do what Petty Officer Mark said. I was shocked. And what I found out later is he was sending Toombs a message. You will not treat Petty Officer Marks this way. He was protecting me without bucking up against the chain of command. You see, he was very shrewd in what he did. He elevated me into a position of great responsibility over time and diminished Toombs's. Relational power. This is created when the followers believe that the leader possesses qualities that they admire and like to possess. You ever been around someone that you really like them and you just want to be like them? You know? What does it say? Flattery is one of the greatest forms of respect or admiration when someone wants to mimic you. The followers identify with their leader and attempt to copy their leader. As referent power is dependent on how the follower views the personality of their leader, a leader will not have referent or relational power over every follower they lead. Some leaders will have a referent power over just a few, while others, such as Gandhi, can lead millions. Martin Luther King could lead millions. You just might lead 3 or 4, but all that is relational power, you see. People, I want to be like you. I wanted my kids, that's the kind of leader I want to be in my home. You see, I wanted my kids to want to be like me. You know, because we do a lot of marriage and family work as well, and not just corporate work and our work. And I always say to people, you know, would your children say, I want the parents my marriage had, I want the marriage my parents had? See, I would never say that. Right now, my kids say, I want to marry like my mom and dad. I've done good. I've done good because they see the benefit and the strength of it rather than the negative side, you see. I want that kind. That's relational power. When you want to mimic those kind of people, you want to model them, all right? Next is benefit power. This type of influence is created when the leader is able to offer a reward to his followers for completing tasks and behaving in a certain manner. Rewards in the workplace can take a variety of forms, such as chocolate, gift vouchers, and holidays to promotions, commission, and pay raises. This reward will only be effective if, here we go ahead and punch this for me. First, the reward appeals to the followers. Hey, we're all going to get a $10 gift certificate to Gate gas stations. Well, I don't know if that would appeal to me, right? So if it doesn't appeal to me, my motivation to do something goes what? Goes down. So whatever reward you give, it has to have an appeal, all right? If someone's on a diet, giving them a whole year's worth of chocolate, probably not going to appeal to them, right? I always say my only claim to fame in life is that my little brother was on season 5 of The Biggest Loser, a TV show. He's on with his 3rd ex-wife, all right? Offering him something like that would not be a motivator much anymore. You with me? And so whatever you're going to give in terms of benefit power, it's got to appeal. Secondly, the followers have to believe that the leader will give them the reward promised once the task is completed. In other words, if I don't trust you that you're really going to follow through, there's still a little lack of trust, right? So they have to believe you can actually provide it. And third, the reward should be proportionate to the task the follower has to complete. For example, it would be disproportionate to reward an employee with a promotion for making a cup of tea. Boy, can you imagine what the others are going to think? Oh, he didn't make a cup of tea. He's a brown noser. That's why. He brown noses the boss. That's why he got it. I go back to, I got that promotion when matter of fact, Ray had told the team when they were all upset because I got promoted over them and I was a junior guy. When they all started complaining, Ray came in and said, how can I trust you? You can't even water plants. If you can't water plants, how am I going to trust you with people's lives on a weekend when I'm not here? You hear how his thinking was? They were minimizing it. For him, it was crucial to people's lives. And the fact that I took the time to water those stupid plants And I only did it because I figured, well, if I do it, he's going to think I can do anything. That was just a thought I had. That's why I did it. For him, it was proportionate. To the others, it wasn't until they understood his mindset. This guy can water plants. I can trust him without me being present. Cool. That was a benefit. When I found another part-time job, made more money during the week. Next, controlling power. This is the opposite of reward or benefit power because the power is based on the leader having control over what happens if followers do not act as required. If followers do not undertake the action required, the leader will impose a penalty. Penalties take a variety of forms, including withdrawal privileges, job loss, verbal abuse, and delayed or loss of promotion. Okay? That is controlling power. Go ahead and hit the next one for me. Coercive power. This controlling power requires followers to believe that the leader has the ability to impose the penalty. So if you're going to put a threat out there, they have to believe you can actually fulfill it. Just as much as they have to believe that you can fulfill the benefit power, they got to believe you can actually do what you're about to say. All right. Also, the penalty has to be something that the followers do not want to have imposed on them. You know, for example, a penalty results in coffee being banned is unlikely to influence a tea drinker. So if he said, well, we're not getting coffee anymore, I'm like, fine with me. I don't drink it anyways. You don't see me at Starbucks. Now, you will see me going through the drive-thru at McDonald's to get my unsweet iced tea. A lot. So don't ban iced tea, right? Because then you're affecting me. But if you coffee drinkers lose coffee, who cares? I'm not affected one bit. You see what I mean? That's the whole idea here. Next slide says, coercive power should be used carefully. Overuse can lead to unhappy employee. Unhappy followers can be negative and unmotivated. They may resign or adopt a work-to-rule attitude. Work-to-rule is where employees refuse to undertake any duties or adopt working practices that are not stated in their contract. In other words, well, that's not my job description. They come in, do what they have to do, and they leave. All right? And so be very careful how you use control power. All right? And lastly is what is known as expert power. As the title suggests, a leader has expert power when the followers believe the leader has expert knowledge, all right, or skills that are relevant to the job or task they have to complete. Often an experienced member of the team or staff in an organization can have expert power even though they are not a supervisor or manager. In other words, I can be the leader of the group, but I don't have expert power. You know, it may be that Shelley has expert power. And I may be talking, but everyone's looking to Shelley because they know she knows. They know she knows more than I do. And then when the meeting's over, they go, Shelley, what'd you think about it? He said, oh, he's a fool. He doesn't know this, and this. You see? So who are they going to follow? That's expert power in play. All right? Can everybody have expert power? No, but you're an expert in something, right? That's why a healthy leader finds the people who have the knowledge and the skills and puts them around them. They also know they don't know everything. So they always stay teachable. I always go back to my fundamentals right there. Stay teachable. All right? So in summary, as you've seen, each power is created by the follower's belief. If the follower does not hold the requisite belief, then that leader is not able to influence them. Benefit power needs the follower to believe the leader is going to reward them. Controlling power needs the follower to believe that you will punish them. Positional power needs the follower to believe the leader has the right to instruct them. Relational power needs the follower to believe that you have desirable qualities. I want to be like you. The whole idea of mentoring is to develop people, right? And if those people that really like you, they want to be like you, right? And expert power needs the follower to believe that the leader is an expert. So you can think about yourself, you know, what kind of power do you operate out of for yourself? Is it up here? There is a purpose for this, but I would argue it's minimal. All right? You should operate out of something, one of the other ones. Expert power, you're not an expert in anything. I'll give you an example. I had a guy come see me. He works for a $19 billion healthcare business. He runs $3.5 billion of that whole company, that one division. And he came in, marriage is in trouble, came in to see me, and this guy is telling me how to do my job. because no one questions him. So I went through that with him, and I basically said this: I'm just curious. I don't know what you do in your company, but apparently you're very successful. He said, I'm very successful. I'm very powerful. I travel the world. And I said, yeah, you're also on your third marriage. Mm-hmm. See, nobody talks to him that way, but I was. I didn't care. So I drew a little dot, and then I drew a larger circle. I said, so would it be accurate that this dot represents my knowledge base of what you do, and this big circle represents your knowledge base of what you do? He said, yes. So if I went into your job with my little bit of knowledge and started performing your job, what would I look like? And he said, you look like a jerk. I said, yeah, or a fool. I said, it's interesting. You're wise enough to know that I have to have a lot more knowledge to do your job that I don't have, right? And he said, right. I said, I find it interesting. You're coming in here telling me how to do my job. And if you really knew what I knew, why are you sitting here in my office in the first place? He goes, I get it. I said, stay teachable. You don't know everything. I'm not smarter than you. I operate in a different realm of knowledge than you do. And because I operate in a different realm of knowledge than you, I might have something that you need that can transform your life and relationships and you as a leader. As a matter of fact, he did transform himself, and it transformed himself as a leader. This is going to sound odd, but I'll give you an example. I was doing a couples retreat in the Northwoods of Wisconsin back in September, where there's this Chinese guy married to an Anglo girl. And I talk about maturity and emotional development. And I kept making relationships back to the workplace. Saturday morning, he confronts me. Tall guy, his name's Matt. He says, Dr. Marks, he said, you keep talking about empathy and maturity and treating people as equals. He said, I just have you know, I'm a director of one of the largest healthcare chains in America. He said, I have a lot of position. I have a high position and a lot of power and authority. I get things done. He goes, I get things done. People with master's degrees don't get done. So I'm like, he operates here. But I'm always about being respectful, right? So I said, so what you want me to know is that you are the type of guy that gets things done and you're well rewarded for it. He goes, I'm very well rewarded for what I do. I said, you know, every business needs people like you. I said, because you're the kind of guys that get things done and make things happen. He's grinning. I said, there's only one problem with y'all. He goes, what's that? And I said, you suck at relationships and you mistreat people. And I turned around and walked away from him. Well, he didn't like it, but he kept listening to me. Saturday afternoon, I'm teaching him and his wife a communication skill. And he had been stewing about what I was saying throughout the day. So he calls me over, and he says, all right, I don't think it'll work. I said, what, empathy in the workplace? Caring about people? You have to drive people. You have to motivate them. You got to move them. And so while he's talking, I'm also a minister, so I put my minister hat on, but he just didn't know it. While he's talking, I reached down and grabbed his foot, his pant leg, and I brought his foot up. He goes, what? I go, leave me alone. Just keep talking. And I put his foot on my knee. And I started massaging his foot. I did. He's looking at me like weird. His wife's looking at me. And so I kept talking to him. I could massage his foot. And I let him talk. And I said, I want to ask you a question now. Because you believe leadership requires power and control and to drive people. I said, in your mind, who is the most powerful man that ever walked the face of the earth? The most powerful. He goes, you mean like military leader? I said, no, just in general, in your mind, who's the most powerful person? He said, Jesus Christ. I said, are you sure? He said, yes. I said, great. Now, he had, 12 employees, didn't he? Mm-hmm. He goes, yeah. I said, I find it interesting. He washed their feet. The whole time I was what? And I said to him, I'm just curious, Matt, what if you washed the feet of your employees? What would be different, and what could be different for you? And I put his foot down and pat him on the back. The next morning, he was talking with two other guys, and I heard him mention my name at a break. And I said, all right, guys, I heard you mention my name. And one goes, go ahead, Matt, ask him. He says, well, no, you're busy, Rick. I go, no, what do you want? He said, Rick, I've never met a man that's inspired me. I said, really? I said, well, thank you. He goes, well, I was just wondering, but you're busy. I go, I decide whether I'm busy or not. What do you want? would you mentor me? And I've been mentoring him now since September of last year, pouring my life into him. When I go to Milwaukee or Chicago, I meet with him. We talk on the phone regularly. After the first week, he was in a meeting, called me up. He said, I got to talk to you. First staff meeting after that weekend. Thinking about what all I said, about how to treat people. One of the employees at the state, one of his direct managers underneath him, walked into his office after the staff meeting was over and said, what happened to you? He said, what? He goes, what happened to you? He said, what do you mean? That's not the Matt we know. The Matt today listened to us. The Matt today cared about what we had to say. And the Matt actually treated us with respect. That's not you. What happened? He said, well, I met this guy at this marriage seminar. He said, who is he? And he started telling him about me. He said, Matt, your eyes are different. He said, Matt, what? He goes, Matt, your eyes are different. He said, let me tell you something. When you left the room, we all sat there and looked at each other. And I don't know, one of the employees said, if this guy's here on a regular basis, we'll do anything for him. He's leading in a very different way now. Guess where he also led that way? At home. Which is why his marriage is in crisis. Because he led by control. And I just offered to him a possibility that maybe if you wash their feet, you might find you'll get far more out of them. And a year and a half later, this guy is teachable. He's no longer arrogant. Oh, we got a tinge of it still. You know, his marriage is transformed, but his productivity, which was high before, is increased 28% in a year and a half. What changed? I submit to you, he changed. And as he changed, they started giving more. Does that make sense to you? Okay. So, we're talking about power there. All right, real quickly here. Being a guy, I know we're in a room full of ladies here, but if you want to talk leadership, the military is excellent at it. So I just offer you, this is what the U.S. Army teaches for leadership. Just think about what we've been talking about. Be tactically and technically proficient. I mean, you got to know what you're talking about. You got to have the skills and tools. Know yourself and seek self-improvement. They teach, if you want to be a great leader, you got to know who you are, your strengths and your weaknesses, and you got to want to change them and develop yourself. Know your soldiers and look out for their welfare. If you're a leader, and this is from generals all the way down to corporals, overseeing privates, it's all the way up and down the chain of command. Know your soldiers. Know those people that are on your team. And look out for their welfare, not your own. Keep your soldiers informed. Do not leave them in the dark. Keep them informed. They ask questions, answer it. All right? Do not lead by keeping them in a mystery, because then that creates a lot of unnecessary angst and tension among the soldiers. All right? Set the example. In other words, you be the example. Ensure the task is understood, supervised, and what? Accomplished. Just don't say we're doing this. They need to understand what they're doing and why. In the large country, supervise it and see that it gets done. Train your soldiers what? As a team. If you want to know why the military does everything as a group, it's because a unit has to move as one in order to accomplish and survive combat. If you got a person who's a lone ranger out there, they threaten the whole what? Team. All right? Make sound and timely decisions. Develop a sense of responsibility. Where? In your subordinates. That means he has to have a sense of responsibility, but he also has to develop in his subordinates, employ your unit in accordance with his capabilities. In other words, if you've got an IT team, don't put them out there doing accounting. They're IT people. Get a bunch of number crunchers to do those things, right? Your group has capabilities. Let them live and survive in those things. And lastly, seek responsibility and take responsibility for your actions. You can sum up a lot of what I'm talking about here is a leader developing followers just right there. Okay? Now, real quick, pushing or pulling. Pushing followers is to use fear as a motivator. This does not bring the follower along, but must push them to stay connected to the leader and the work team. Pulling is more about leading and showing the way. So I can push you as a leader in a sense, right? Push, push, push. We would say, rather than push the followers, bring them along. Bring them along. Come on, we can do it. Come on, I'll show you. I'll show you, right? We can get there. We can get there. Rather than get out there and do this. All right? So, next, we're going to talk